I am excited to be here with some of my partners talking to you about effective post secondary transition services as part of the student's individualized educational plan, also known as an IEP. As educational advocates, we wholeheartedly agree with the successful scientist Temple Grandin when she said, I am a big believer in early intervention. And we are happy to see our state legislators joining us in this belief as demonstrated by the new Florida bill, HB 173. This bill now requires the schools to begin the planning process and the transition IEP development by providing information to parents when the student is in grade 7 or is 12 years old, and to implement the transition services by the age of 14 or when the student enters high school. Although we appreciate the actions taken by legislators, we are concerned because it continues separating planning that now must happen at age 12 from implementation at age 14. In the past, this has created conflicts between school and parents during the IEP, as it can delay the provision of direct transition services to our students by 2 years. Today, we are asking our legislators to consider amending HB 173 to mandate that the IEP transition planning at age 12 includes goals and services rather than only the provision of information to parents and students. This requirement will simplify the process for IEP teams and ensure students benefit with system accountability. Some may argue that at 12, students are too young to need post-secondary direct transition services, but this is a very narrow view of transitions and lack of understanding of the IEP process. In reality, every IEP, even the ones from kindergarten, are transition planning as the outmost goal is the same. Planning for the future of our students with disability takes time. Post-secondary educational transition required by federal law, it's a big deal. It is more than just to write a career goal on a piece of paper. The transition IEP must be a result-oriented process and a roadmap to a meaningful adult life. Students don't only need support with academics, but also functionally and emotionally to develop essential life skills such as self-advocacy and self-determination. Our high schools have vast natural opportunities already embedded, and we want our children to take advantage of them. Unfortunately, a lot of our students with disabilities cannot fully participate due to the lack of skills to qualify and the transition services starting too late. Also, high school demands could be stressful, which has led to school dropouts and even worse, to tragedies on our own school campuses. That is why we are asking our legislators to amend the bill to include these two specific requirements. Number one, at least one measurable goal based on appropriate transition assessments related to functional, emotional, or independent living skills. And number two, that transition services are provided to support the student in reaching those goals. I will introduce you now to another partner who will continue with this important topic and provide some data.
Hello, my name is Barbara Beasley. I live in Seminole County and am the mother of two exceptional students, one who graduated from Seminole County Public Schools in 2020, and my daughter is homeschooled with the Family Empowerment Scholarship for Unique Abilities. I have also been an education advocate for nearly 20 years. Florida is no different than most states in that society routinely just accepts that people with disabilities will spend their adult lives primarily dependent on government assistance, subsequently making very few investments in changing that trajectory. But what if it could be different? A report created by the Florida Able Trust indicates that there are an estimated 2.67 million Floridians who indicate that they have a disability, or 13.4% of the entire population. In the 18 to 64 age group, the group most likely to be in the workforce, 1.2 million Floridians indicate that they have a disability. 44% of our disabled population in Florida is of working age 18 to 64, yet very few hold jobs, And of those who do, those jobs are more symbolic, either for the employer or the employee. Yet in the portions of the disabled community where a true investment of resources already exists, disabled persons fill positions across the spectrum of industries and from entry level to senior executive. They own and operate successful businesses, and they are taxpayers instead of relying on government benefits. The key to that path of success is early intervention, which can be accomplished with this change to age 12 for transition services if we actually provide the services instead of a box being checked off in an IEP meeting. We can utilize the magnet and vocational programs and structures already in place and give these students the added time and the support that they need to fully absorb and gain experience in a field in which they are interested. If we give appropriate evaluations, including those that identify and explore their interests and not just academic strengths, we can build a rich and effective IEP that truly advances the student to their best academic outcomes. But if we exclude these kids from programs and fail to give them the same opportunities that their non-disabled peers have, we become the failures. If we assume that they won't pass some predetermined benchmark, we do a disservice to them and to our communities. Self-determination is a person's ability to make choices on their own and manage their own life. Effective transition services begun at the earliest possible time are the blueprint for that success. We know that appropriate education of non-disabled students leads to positive outcomes, and we have decades of data to support that. A student with unique learning abilities is no different. Their needs, wants, and desires are no less important. Now I would like to introduce my partner who can truly illustrate the why of what we ask as she shares the story of her journey with her son.
My name is Lisa Finney, and I live in Miami-Dade County. My son was diagnosed with language impaired and autism spectrum disorder at the age of 5 in pre-kindergarten. His diploma was deferred in order for him to participate in Project Search, and it was received in June of 2021. Because of the participation in Florida Partners in Policymaking, I researched in detail the goals and the objectives of HB 173. This led me to review my son's IEP and his transitional plan. I realized that I was not informed about vocational rehabilitation, also known as VR, until his senior year for transition services. He was introduced to Project Victory, a community-based instruction during his 12th grade year. Within the program, he learned how to handle money, work in different departments at Publix, such as the deli, bagging, stock, bakery, and produce, in order for him to identify which area he preferred to work. He was also able to order and purchase food from different restaurants with some assistance. He identified and understood the meaning of some indoor and outdoor survival science. In addition, my son participated in Project Search through the city of Hialeah. Unfortunately, he did not receive the full benefit of the program because of the pandemic. Today, my son is 23 years old, participates with the Center for Independent Living, receives private speech therapy, has the desire to work, and is seeking employment through Best Buddies. Nevertheless, he had limited access to the entire career development training, considering the large gap between age 14 and his senior year. Therefore, I believe the lack of exposure minimized his availability for additional apprenticeship. Sometimes when I look at my son, I wonder how his life could have been, how much more independent he could be if he had been introduced to these services earlier and other services like these. Now that HB 173 has changed from the age of 14 to 12, if policymakers will add the additional requirements to goals, it will help parents to hold school districts accountable to implement it on the IEP goals earlier to become effective. Caregivers with children of disability want to see their children thrive, be independent and employed, and not just rely on government assistance. If my son had received early transition services, which include vocational rehabilitation, VR, at the age of 14 in conjunction with other services, I believe he might have gained independent living skills, be a far better communicator, and an effective self advocate, have self determination, and be able to use soft skills such as time management, interpersonal, problem solving, and additional employment skills as well. Will you please consider adding the requirements of goals to be added to the transition IEP so that future students don't struggle like we have? My partner will explain the benefits for our state.
My name is Nicole Perez. I live in Seminole County. My advocacy journey began with our oldest son, who is a current exceptional student in the public school system. I'm happy to be here talking to you to help others' families like mine. As already explained by my partners, it is important to have an effective transition plan. We are seeing policymakers understand this and approve HB 173. But starting the transition planning at 12, just with only providing information is not enough. We are asking for your help in this issue. If we set specific goals at the IEP at the beginning of the transition plan, it will help us to track progress and create accountability for all involved. It is important to keep in mind that different from our typical high school student, some exceptional students require longer time, repetition, or just to try a different approach to gain new skills. This addendum in the current bill will give students with an IEP ample time with opportunities to learn, develop abilities, and practice in multiple scenarios to be able to master important skills, which will increase the opportunity to find and retain jobs for these students. Making this change can also decrease the percentage of dropouts and jail retention. For a student with a disability and their families, preparing the student for a future job and or college education means much more than a paycheck. Means they are preparing for independence, self-confidence, and security. A lot of caregivers suffer health and economic challenges due to the responsibility and cost that it takes to manage the care of an individual with disability. It will give the caregiver respite to be able to prioritize their needs. They also can return to work, decreasing the dependency of the government assistance. Both students and caregiver will become taxpayers and instead of tax consumers. Based on the report of employment of Floridians with a disability by the Able Trust, Florida needs to produce 1.7 million new jobs by 2030. There are more than 2.9 million Floridians of typical working age who are not in the labor force. Of those, 1 out of every 4 of them have a disability. Incorporating those who are currently not in the labor force who want to work will have substantial economic benefits to those individuals and to the state of Florida. Please consider our recommendation. You're the ones able to make change to the actual policy. The student with disabilities need the chance to be active members in our society. Now, here's our partner back to conclude our presentation.
Hello again. We all thank you for your time and attention to this important issue. As policymakers, your support will bring to fruition the intent of the legislation, which is to have the meaningful and much needed early transition services for a student. This change won't cost anything extra in the state budget, but it will help schools to have specific requirements which will avoid costly oversights. And most importantly, if the IEP team adds goals and services at age 12, it will empower our students to have the tools necessary early on to be active and effective participants in their own transition planning and their future as adults. We sincerely hope that you will consider our request. Thank you.